So here we are again. Thanks for tuning in and keeping up with how this build is going. Right now, to catch everybody up, who may not be in the loop, we have got our engine block that has been bored out to a 75.5 millimeter from an old block that I had. We have verified that it was bored out correctly and that the entirety of the cylinders were cross-hatched like are supposed to be for a full bore through. We had the top of the block resurfaced and polished up, as well as all of the mating surfaces, including the bottom here, the oil pan, the rear main seal on the back. All those surfaces were polished up. We didn't resurface any of those. They seem to be fine. Trying to make sure they're nice and clean. What we did was install some Viterra pistons and no-notch H-beams from Speed Factory. These no-notch H-beams are great because they give you a higher compression rate on the block itself without having to notch the girdle down on the bottom or the bottom of the block. I can personally attest that there's perfect amounts of clearance for the way these are designed. Full rotations, no issues. So we got our pistons and rods in. Well, first we put our crankshaft in. We had the crankshaft polished all the way around. There didn't seem to be any distortion or defects in it, so it was just a polish on that. Polish on all mating surfaces of the girdle down here, at all the areas where it comes into contact with the bottom of the block and where it mounts, all polished up. So we got crankshaft in, pistons, rods, girdle, and then we went and installed the oil pump. This is a aftermarket high flow oil pump from Speed Factory as well. They sell a variety of good stuff for these blocks and Hondas in general. Excuse me, I don't have COVID, I just have a smoker's cough. Yes, shame on me. So we got the oil pump in, and then we went and we got the rear main seal in. This is a reused bracket from Honda itself. There's an OEM bracket, but the seal itself is a brand new Honda seal. I always opt to go for these type of seals to be from Honda. Rear main seal, crank seal, cam seal. Those seals last a long time. 100,000 plus miles. So they're definitely good to go for even a build like this. So we got those on. I was going to have the original head resurfaced, all mating surfaces polished, as well as an entire valve train. Clean up, disassemble, clean everything, polish the camshaft, the rockers. Ended up that bill was going to run me probably $500 to $600 just to do that. So instead I did a reman swap from a company that does just remanufacturing of heads themselves. So they go through, they disassemble, they clean everything. If there are any parts that need to be taken out or cleaned up, they do that and they put it all back together. So I just got one of those. As you can see, they did a full clean on it, and they actually gave it an anodizing spray to kind of even out all the discoloration from the used block. A lot of the grind that's on there right now is just from me. I mean, this thing came and was fairly clean and definitely good to go. The head studs I used were ARP head studs. These were kind of a struggle to get installed correctly. I messed up the first time not installing them correctly and snapped one of them. Then I had to go through the process of buying a whole nother set of head studs, had to buy a new head gasket, which I'm using a Honda factory head gasket. The bore on the factory head gaskets are 76 millimeters, so they will work up to a 76 millimeter bore out. Past that, you would need to get an oversized either Felpro or some other brand head gasket to work with that, but being that I'm at a 75.5, that head gasket works fine. And I got the head on, installed, all torqued down. You can watch any of those videos to catch up on what the process was for that. And then we went and we got the timing belt, the tensioner, the water pump, and the cam gear installed. This is an AEM adjustable aftermarket cam gear. As you can see, we've got 10 degrees either way of adjustability. And for what I'm doing today, I need to make sure that that is lined up as it is. I just did that. So you can see on the sides we've got these two white marks. These line up with the side of the head, and you can kind of see that that's fairly right on the money. If you look straight on at that mark, it's right where it needs to be. So down here, I marked up our crank position sensor with our oil pump arrow to line up top dead center on piston number 1. And what we're doing today is valve lash adjustment. As this is rated to be done when the engine is cold, this is a perfect time to do it. So, valve clearance, engine cold from our Haynes manual for all the listed vehicles there. We are looking at the Civic. This is a D16Y7. It applies to any of these engines. Pretty much the specs are very similar going down, aside from the Integra. It's got a tighter tolerance. But here at our intake, we've got a .007 to .009 inch, and our exhaust a .009 to .011. So we've got our feeler gauge here. Gauge that I have is an even gauge. So a lot of these are actually even integers. As you see, we get bigger, we get more odd ones, but down here on the low side, I've got a .008, which will work for my intake, and a .010, which will work for my exhaust. So I just need to be between there, and that's right in the middle. So those are the two we're going to be utilizing today. I got this feeler gauge from AutoZone, OEM Tools. They've got a few different versions of it for doing different stuff. I think it was about 15 bucks. I always suggest for a lot of the stuff, get a shop manual. Haynes or Shilton will do. I generally get the Haynes because that's what my auto parts store stock. It gives reference on all of these bits and pieces you need to know to do this. Do a little tool call out on this one. This is a quad wrench from Gear Wrench. As you can see, it's a ratcheting wrench, and it is not just a 2 ratcheting wrench. Each side is a different size. So we've got 8 and 12, and 10 and 13, all on the same wrench, ratcheting on both sides. My buddy Dave Beck picked me up a set of these, all 4 of them. That gives me all sizes from 8mm through, I believe, 21 or 22 on 4 wrenches. These are a sweet set of wrenches. I've never had gear wrench tools before, but these ones are amazing, honestly. I'm using the 10 on this to go through and loosen up all of my lock nuts on my valve locks. So you got 1 per valve, so 2 per each side per cylinder, and you need to loosen those all up. I got my flathead right here to adjust the clearance itself. I'm just leaving that down on my oil path. I don't lose it. So I don't need the wrench right now, but Gear Wrench, great company, make amazing tools, fairly expensive, but pretty awesome. So coming over here to do our adjustments, we're going to start on the intake side. So we're going to rotate our engine around. And we're using the .08, and we should have a valve clearance, .08 on top dead center. I had to pause it there for a second, do some double checking on my reference material. So, as I was saying, .008 gauge. So we're going to come in here, and what we're going to do is slide this between the valve stem and the top of the valve. And as you can see, we got a lot of play there. And just so you know, with cylinder labelment, it should be pretty obvious. Cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4. Always counts away from the timing belt. Closest one to the timing belt is 1. Next closest one is 2, and on. 4 cylinders, it's pretty easy. So we're going to check this and see that we got a decent amount of clearance there. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave that in there. We're going to tighten down the lock itself until we get this down to, when I pull it out, there's just a little drag. Should go right in there. There should be just a little drag when you pull it out. There shouldn't be a heavy drag, and it shouldn't be loose like it is now. And then once we get that set, we're going to hold this tight with the screwdriver, and we're going to use our box end wrench and tighten this down to be locked. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come over to the crankshaft and rotate the crankshaft 180 degrees. So that'll take our dot there, 180 degrees down to the other side. And what's great about this cam is that I've got 3 marks that'll give me 90-degree rotations. So that's what that 180 degrees from the crankshaft to give us, a 90-degree rotation, where this line will be perfectly parallel to that there, and that'll be our cylinder 3. So then we'll come over to cylinder 3 and we'll do the intake, but obviously at the same time we're doing this, we'll do intake and exhaust of cylinder 1, rotate, intake, exhaust of cylinder 3, rotate, and then I believe it'll come back to cylinder 2. Let me double check that, see if it's 1, 3, 2, 4. So we're just checking our reference material here. So we'll go 1, 3, 4, 2. So each 180 degree rotation of the crankshaft will go in order of 1, 3, 4, 2. And that'll be the order of the 90 degree rotation of the camshaft. So top dead center 1, 90 degrees, top dead center 3, 90 degrees, top dead center 4, 90 degrees, top dead center 2. And that's how you do it. You're going to obviously need tools, feeler gauge, box end wrench, flathead screwdriver, a 17mm socket for the crank, and a breaker bar is the easiest way to do it. If you don't have an adjustable cam gear, you may need to put some marks on your cam gear to make it easier to see where these rotations are. And then once you get them all tightened down, what you're going to want to do is do a full 2 rotations of the crankshaft. That'll give you a full rotation of the camshaft. And then you're going to want to go through and check all these again, make sure they're good. And that is pretty much the entirety of the valve lash adjustment. This is a channel about random car work, housework, anything like that. If you guys have any requests, suggestions, leave them in the comments, send me a direct message, all that good stuff. One of the other things I'm going to be working on probably today is getting the oil pickup tube and the oil pan on there. We'll go over that. As a side note, there's my harness bar for my other Civic, just waiting to be installed. So yeah, comment, subscribe, direct message. I like doing this stuff. If you guys have a specific vehicle you want me to do something on, I'm usually pretty able to find someone who has a vehicle I can work on to get these done. Things might be a little different now in quarantine, but yeah, thanks for watching.